You may be wondering, as I was, what's that little radio-controlled boat doing out in the middle of the Ohio River? And what do they have attached to the back of it? Well, it turns out this is a piece of surf fishing gear designed to tow your baited hook, line, and sinker out into deep water, much farther than you could cast from the beach, drop it off, and use GPS to return to shore. But these researchers from Marshall University aren't going after a record-setting catch. They're fishing for answers.
We are towing a weighted tube, basically form a pipe, that sits a half a meter underneath the water. And we get it out there about 50 feet into the channel to where it's well mixed, and we pump it back to shore to get a good representative sample of the Ohio main stem.
Instruments measure turbidity, dissolved oxygen, pH, and algae levels. Water samples are then brought to the lab for further testing, using DNA to precisely identify specific algae species. All this effort is going into being able to predict, manage, and possibly even prevent something like this from happening again. This is the Ohio River at Huntington during the late summer of 2015. What looks like a huge spill of green paint is an unprecedented bloom of cyanobacteria, otherwise known as blue-green algae, that covered almost the entire length of the river. Blue-green algae produces toxins that, if ingested, can cause serious illness or death in pets, livestock, and wildlife. Just coming into contact with it can result in skin and eye irritations, breathing problems, and digestive issues.
This was kind of an unprecedented event because harmful algal blooms, although they have been increasing in severity and frequency, mostly they occur in lakes or the marine environment, but not very often have they occurred in flowing water systems. So that was kind of an event that everyone stopped and said, why is this happening in riverine systems?
The study is funded through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and involves teams of researchers from Marshall, the University of Kentucky, Mississippi State, Auburn, and Tennessee Tech. The study will use machine learning and computer modeling to predict what triggers these harmful algal blooms. That requires data, lots and lots of data.
Really, we're trying to identify a difference. We want to know if the algae in the Ohio is being caused by being flushed in by the tributaries. That's our main trying to focus right now, trying to see if that's the case. And that's why we have a site right here in front of the Little Sandy. Then we have a site at the mouth of the Little Sandy where it's being mixed in by the Ohio. And then we have one upstream in the Little Sandy where there's no mixing going on to see the difference. Is, say there's a lot of algae right here, and then there's a moderate amount of algae right there at the mouth, and then there's none upstream, then we know it's in the Ohio and not in the Little Sandy. And we got that set up at Little Sandy, 4-pole, 12-pole, and Gondot. And we're looking at, we're basically looking at all those and trying to piece together where it's coming from when it happens.
With algal blooms, you have to have light because it's photosynthetic. You have to have nutrients, and temperature speeds up everything. So light, nutrients, and temperature are kind of the standard that you look for, and that's what we know about lake algal blooms or anything like that. But in a flowing river system, you're also going to have velocity because the algae have to reproduce faster than they wash out, or else that's, they're not going to be able to have this bloom happen. So you have that velocity, and then in a riverine system, turbidity is significant, and particularly in the Ohio River, it's a very turbid river. So you have to have a condition that will allow the turbidity to be low enough that the algae can bloom. So those are kind of the main 5 factors that we're looking at.
With 20 dams for flood control and navigation spaced along the nearly 1,000-mile length of the river, the Ohio in many ways acts like a series of large, slow-moving lakes.
Each pool really acts as it's more riverine towards the upper end of the pool, and then there's a transitional zone, and then it becomes more lake-like. But I guess we didn't really know how lake-like, that it was becoming. But interestingly, when that bloom happened, it didn't seem to mark that designation that I just described. The bloom was, extensive through all the reaches. So it's question. I mean, that's a serious, curious thing that, as a scientist, you want to jump out there and see what's going on.
The study is focused on the stretch of river between the Robert C. Byrd and Greenup Locks and Dam about 60 miles downstream. It's expected to run through 2025. In Huntington, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters. Thanks for watching.